mean, I'm a foreign policy guy. I think foreign policy is a big issue, and I think Americans generally don't pay attention that much to foreign policy, considering how much outsized influence the United States has in the world, how much influence we have in the Middle East, how much influence we have in Europe, how much influence we have in Africa, all over the world, and in South America. I mean, a great example of this is, if you look at the New York Times this morning, the top three articles are about Joe Biden's age, and then the fourth is about Donald Trump saying the Russians should do whatever the hell they want in reference to NATO, and if they don't pay enough, then just screw them. That is a massive, 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 horrible break with American deterrent policy in Europe, and that is something which could legitimately provoke a war. If the Russians misread that, if Trump is just trying to finagle a few more dollars out of NATO, but the Russians see uncertainty about our strategic position, about what our incentives are in Europe, and they think they can probe against the Estonians, they think they can probe against the Latvians, they think they can probe against the Lithuanians or any of these countries, then there's a situation where we have a real security crisis if the Russians try something like that, not because we've changed our actual military capacity to defend Europe or because we're just weaker now, but just because of uncertainty created by somebody who couldn't shut his mouth.
Do you think Americans should care more about other countries?
I do think Americans should care more about other countries.
I think it's a tall order, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a tall order, but it's the right thing to do, and it makes sense for us. For example, people talk about Europe and, who cares about the European?
It's like half of your trade,
Why should we care? The majority of our exports, our number one exports, go to Europe. They're our number one continent for exports. 45% of global GDP is concentrated within Europe and North America. They're our a gigantic trading partner. We're intertwined with them geopolitically. If they were to go down, if there was to be an economic crisis in Europe, maybe they wouldn't be able to buy up all the LNG exports that we're sending over there. That would have an effect on our economy too, just like the housing market screwed over the Chinese as well in 2008.
Do you think isolationism is a big growing? Do you think it's actually becoming the case that it's going to become a really, really serious threat?
It's a cancer, but it's always been here. It's just we've been able to kind of temper it down. If you look at the lead up to our involvement in the Second World War, there was a lot of America First sentiment. And I mean literally America First sentiment. That's what they called it. And there was a lot of isolationism during that period because they saw the horrors of the First World War, and their response wasn't, okay, let's limit what type of conflicts we go into and let's be smarter about entering these conflicts and know what interests we have at stake. It's, let's just retract. It's an easy answer. It's a simple solution. Getting involved in the world might be complicated. It might come with issues. There might be mistakes that we make on the international stage, so let's just retract from the international stage and pretend we don't have any interest anywhere else, which will just lead to, economic and geopolitical catastrophe.
It does seem like after World War II that changed pretty dramatically, right? Because since then you've got containment policy is a really big thing, and then I'm pretty sure the Vietnam War initially was quite popular, wasn't it? At least until
it's complicated because it's kind of like a gradual increase. Like it was like a police action that became kind of a war, but we never technically called it a war. So I think it was more popular during the start, and of course decreased quickly as the war went on. But a bigger point I'm trying to make is not necessarily that the American government isn't interested in foreign policy. I think right now what we're seeing in the House with the decision atrophy in reaction to aid to Ukraine is an example of it leaking into our legislature. But my main concern is having American people, a citizenry, who are well informed enough about foreign policy, so when they hear somebody say, screw Europe, they can reflexively be like, that is insane, I need to stay away from that guy, that is stupid, I can't believe he would say something like that. That would endanger our economy in the future of us possibly getting dragged into a global war by creating that uncertainty. I want people to vote for legislators based upon the knowledge that they will have a stable future for us on the geopolitical scene.
Getting people to care about foreign policy it probably starts with not being so divided at home. I think that when we're at each other's throats and we can't even agree on what basic reality is domestically, I don't know how we're supposed to think about reality internationally. Like half the people in this country still probably think there were, massive amounts of Nazis and bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and that Azov is running the whole country, and there was a CIA planned coup in 2014 for Euromaidan. So yeah, as long as we have such huge stark contrasts at home with how we view the world factually, I don't see how we ever come together on a foreign policy thing.